Let's get Johnny number 5 over here and test pick this. So we dumped the air compressor. Well, that was one of the biggest poop shows ever here on the channel. I didn't catch it on video. You probably thought the lifting device broke, but no, the lifting device was fine. I tipped that over completely by myself, my own fault. I was rotating the compressor so I can approach it with the forklift here, and in doing so, some of the feet slid very quickly because of the dirty, oily floor. One of the feet got caught on the saw joint in the concrete, and from that point on there was no turning back. It twisted and turned out of my hands in such a fashion that it was super fast and it fell in complete slow-mo. Didn't even have words. Just stupid mistake on my part. Definitely a humbling experience. You know, I thought, oh, this is no big deal to slide this around. Well, yeah, when you drop it, it's a big deal. Luckily, nobody got hurt, and our piece that we made took the brunt of the load. It hit this piece, bent it, blew the bolt out of the middle, and I'll take over here and show you. Here's all that's left of the bolts. So that one's pretty well wanged in multiple directions, and this one just completely sheared off. So these took the brunt of the force, bent this guy, mushroomed this out in here. I got some washers installed in there as a spacer. But luckily, I don't think anything is wrong with the compressor. I don't think this actually hit. It didn't break the guard. I just took it off to check it. So that was a complete disaster. We don't want to repeat that again. We have the bar installed pretty much as we did originally. The only thing I changed on it was I added in a stack of washers here. If you remember, our actual lifting point that we added, the spacer is inside here. So when we tightened this bolt down, it wanted to suck this down and suck up the material. So just a stack of washers in here, and a little tip on the other side. It was mushroomed and difficult to get the washers in there. Let's put a little electrical tape around the outside to hold them all together. Instant spacer. We're ready to go. Let's try this thing out. Hopefully we don't dump it this time. We're definitely not going to manually spin it anymore or manipulate it like we did previously. So let's test out this lifting device again. There we go. Perfect. She seems pretty well balanced and on there pretty solid. Right now I'm shaking the whole mass of the forklift, so I'm pretty happy and content with that. I got these rubber isolation mounts that I pulled out of the garbage. I think these things are going to work really good. I don't want to get under there right now, seeing as how we already dropped it one time, but I am going to get the right fastener for this before we get it up in the air. That way we're not climbing up and down a bunch. Too long. Looks like this is the ticket. I don't know, what we got? 2-inch maybe. These are pretty slick. Price is right because they were free out of the garbage, but the head of the bolt drops in there. Profile inside is shaped for the hex. So I think those rubber isolation mounts that we got free out of the garbage pile are going to work really good for this. Now, we need to get it way up there. I didn't install the rubber isolation mounts yet because I don't think I have the extra height available to lift it up. Our mass is going to get pretty close to the ceiling trying to get it on that step. If you notice up here, I have, if you can see with the light, I have extra set of beams across here that's going to connect this pallet rack here on the right to the pallet rack that's gone down this way. Once these beams are connected here, I will have a full shelf from the front of the building all the way to this corner. But I do need to do some custom fabricating to get this standard beam to tie in to the other rack. It's like 2 inches too short. And once we get the decking on there, we'll be able to stack all kinds of treasures up there, which in this small tiny space, we need to be able to stack stuff as much as possible. Right now what we're going to do is we're going to get those bars out of there because they're in our way, and prepare to lift the air compressor up there. We got that beam out of there. There's no need to take out the rear beam because we're not going to get back in there. But we do need to get up on top and add in some wood filler planking in between our steel channeling for the deck. Our arbor press that we just installed has to get out of the way too. Luckily, we made this a really quick, easy to move, install, and remove. So this is what we're dealing with. On this side of the pallet rack, previously I installed these on the top shelf in a different video. These are some custom formed C-channel pieces that I had made to create a deck space. A little more robust and a whole lot nicer than those wired decking sit-ups in my opinion. So what I need to do now is drop this piece back in place, and then between spots I'm going to put 2x4 fillers in there. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4 2x4s at 38 3/4. the wire strung from all the way down there around the air compressor, along the wall here, back to our sub panel. Now the wire just happens to be just long enough. I was going to run it over to our main panel over there, but two things. I don't have enough room over there, and my wire that I have available is too short by about, I don't know, 10 to 15 feet. So we're going to wire it into this panel. Ultimately it's going to all get changed. We're going to go to a bigger panel, but first up we got to get in there, and I don't know if you know this or not, this is a standard square D home line breaker. It's a dual pole, so it's a 220 breaker, and has these little plastic clips here to tie into the box and the panel. This is still a square D breaker, but it has these metal prongs, and that's the style that goes in this box here. I have this 40 amp breaker because we have our welding plug up there with 8 gauge wire, and it's still utilizing the old breaker. It only had a 20 available when that was installed because it was installed with a lighter gauge wire. I'm going to swap out this 40 for that 20 and then use that 20 in there for the feed for our air compressor. So if you're looking at breakers, these are both square D. This is the one that I normally use in all my other power applications. This is the particular style for this box up here. This one right here, this is our power for our welder plug. As you can see, it's a 20 amp breaker. You need to get that out of there and upgrade it to our 40 amp breaker, and then get our new wire in there and hook it up to this guy for our air compressor feed. All right. This is leftover wire from the project where we trenched in new wire to that outbuilding. This is UFB. Nothing wrong with it, but you don't really need it in this application. It just happens to be readily available. This does come with a little bit of a challenge of how to strip this. So the trick is to angle your blade next to the bare ground wire and drag it up the wire. That way you're not nicking the insulation on your other conductors. Now you can get your bare ground out. And we need to get the other conductors out yet. This is where it gets kind of tricky. You want to lightly drag your knife on the outside edge, not damaging the insulation on the internal wire. And if you do it correctly, you can just slightly gouge it here without damaging the internal insulation. Then I'm going to grab a hold of it and pull. Oh, this might be sweet and just come right off. Oh yeah. That usually doesn't happen. It's nice when it does. So, other circuit, welder plug, air compressor plug. That was way more difficult than what it needed to be. I fought with stripping the wires and getting it into this smaller size cable clamp. Now I split the ground, ultimately ended up splitting the ground wire out so it can kind of bunch up like a standard Romex instead of being flat, and rolled the neutral around to the backside to get it more into the cable clamp. We're good now. Now I just need to get to the other end and get the air compressor wired up. Here we are, and we're prepared to do something pretty stupid, but we're gonna give it a go, see what happens. Have this larger cable clamp available. This is the only one I have in the shop right now available with me. I have this standard outlet box, which takes the smaller cable clamps. So, it won't fit in the vise, but we're gonna try to make it work. Here's the setup. Something's gonna happen. Whoa. We're gonna have to toe clamp it. So we got our tap started in there. It's a 3/4, and we just need to work it down to the correct depth. Ta-da! Suffered a few casualties here on this. Yeah, we're gonna have to bend that back up. We got our larger cable clamp threaded into the electrical box that we had available, or junction box. We're gonna get this mounted up there, but the end game goal is get this mounted up there, use this as our junction box for our air compressor, then also put on a light socket. That way we can tell if the air compressor's on. Kind of an indicator light, if you will, and a box cover at the same time. Largely because I have this, I have this, and I have this, and this bad boy came with the air compressor. So we'll get that threaded in there and get her mounted up there somewhere. So we got the main power connected from this braided flexible cable. This is only a 12 gauge, and it only had three conductors that had a black, a white, and a green. So we had to use the green wire as the neutral. And then we got her all hooked up in here, as I said, using the green wire as the neutral. But I also added in, yeah, there's the green wire neutral. I also added in 2 pieces of 14 gauge, so one of the circuits is going to feed this light. That way, when the power is on, this light bulb will be on, and we will know that the power is on to the air compressor. So let's get this light fixture base up here. That's going to serve as our junction box cover as well as our indicator light. I'm not for sure how much this is going to bounce and how those rubber isolation feet are going to be. We'll drill 2 holes, one in this rubber isolation mount, one in this rubber isolation mount. Then we're going to fire this thing up and see if this thing bounces a whole lot or if it's good on these mounts. And if it is, we'll go ahead and put the other holes and bolts in. Isn't that a thing of beauty? Got my air compressor all pumped up. That's the biggest air compressor I've ever owned and probably the nicest one. It's super quiet. I don't have to listen to the super duper loud hum of the oilless compressor. And I can use some air tools now. I haven't used an air ratchet in a long time. I also got it conveniently placed so we can plug in our blowgun here. Blow off our machine tools as we're using them and have air readily available instead of dragging that little noisy air compressor around. Oh boy, I am just super happy with that and super excited with it. You may or may not hear just a very small hiss up there. That would be the drain plug on the bottom. It's actually leaking. I took it out, I cleaned it, I put it back together. Didn't quite do the trick. I think it's damaged. No worries, I'm going to install a auto drain on this unit. We're also going to improve on the airline system in the future. But right now we have enough hose to stretch it all over the shop. I just can't explain how happy I am to have that thing off of the trailer, up where it's supposed to be, and functioning so I can actually use it. This is awesome. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Leave your questions in the comments in that section below, and don't forget to punch that subscribe button your way out. Thanks for watching, everyone.